Thank you, Gloria, for the introduction. So let us now do the Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, that is the Ajahn Brahm version. So you have to have the crazy sadhus at the end. Okay, so hello everybody. Nice to be back again. And nice to see you all, sort of. I have as much as I can see on the gallery right now. So yes, we are back to meditating. And I thought, one thing I thought would be nice to talk about is this idea of the present moment, which we all hear about. I mean, we've heard about this not just in meditation, but it's like in pop culture now, the power of now. It's all about the present moment. And this much ballyhooed present moment, it's hard to stay in it, isn't it? It's like, I mean, we can, I don't know if we could, like now they have all these like gadgets, like you can wear a watch that can count how many steps you take and all this stuff. I wonder if they could make a watch that like counts how many seconds are you actually in the present moment in a day, and then all should be revealed actually what the percentage is. It could be shocking. But the thing is, yeah, it sounds like an easy practice. It sounds like something that would be like, some sort of foundational practice or basic thing to stay in the present moment. But let me tell you, it's not easy. And I mean, you could be meditating for years, decades, and still it's like, are you really in the present moment all the time, 100%? I'm not. I don't know about you. But it's, I think it's something that is actually much more profound than we might think. And the thing about it is, though, oftentimes, especially in formal meditation, the instruction is Whenever you notice that your mind is wandering, bring it back. Whenever you notice that you're not in the present moment, you're in the past or the future, bring it back. And then it's always this like feeling that every time I find that I'm not in the present moment, it's like, oh, bad. And like, and then you sort of have to like drag your mind back into the present moment because this is where I should be, I'm supposed to be. And it becomes this kind of like frustrating exercise where you're always like feeling like, oh, I'm not doing it right, or somehow things aren't working, and oh yeah, I'm supposed to be in the present moment. And then somehow I find that then it actually feels more like a struggle. Like being in the present moment is like some kind of struggle and battle we have to win, and we're often losing the battle, which is demoralizing. But the thing is, I feel that may not be the most helpful approach. And for me personally, I find what has been more beneficial or effective for me is to actually notice what activities in my normal life, like not just on the cushion, but in just life, daily life, where I naturally feel my mind comes into the present moment or stays with the present moment easily or naturally, or just as a matter of course. One of my New Year's resolutions is, as I'm sure for many people all over the world, is to start exercising regularly, or at least more, or at least at all. And so my exercise, when you're a nun, it's limited what you can do, right? So you can't go out and do like aerobics in the park or whatever anymore. So my allowable exercise is in our monastery, we have a sort of hilly terrain. And from where our main building complex is and to the gate, the access gate, is 1 kilometer. And it's not a super steep hill, but it's a reasonably, challenging hill, especially for someone who doesn't exercise regularly or at all. And so I noticed that when I was doing this, all I could focus on was like, oh my God, just keep going uphill. And I was getting breathless, and I was like, all I could focus on was just, walk, man, just keep walking. And it's like magically the like extraneous thoughts disappeared from my mind, and I felt my mind was really clear. And I said to myself, actually, to be honest, this is clearer than sometimes when I'm doing formal meditation. And it's like, this must be the secret. I should just go for a walk uphill if I really want to clear my mind. and then it made me, it was sort of like a aha moment where it's like, oh yeah, how come it's so easy? I wasn't even trying. And then it was because I started to reflect on it. It's like, well, maybe it's when you're so focused on something, you don't have the space to think, Sheer survival. I have to like keep walking without like somehow dying on this uphill stretch. Then it's like, oh yeah, when you got to focus, you can focus. And I noticed that when there are like simple repetitive tasks, naturally I find that quite peaceful. Like sometimes in the monastery, when we have jobs like painting a wall or painting like some wooden planks that are going to become benches. I actually enjoy those jobs, because I notice when I'm just doing some simple repetitive task that it's like no need to think about it. I mean, you could, believe me, you could think, well, what is the most effective stroke, and cross hatch and this and that. Or you could just be like a simpleton and just be like, okay, up and down, just paint. And it's very relaxing. Or even the other day, because we are mendicants, you will get ready for a terrible pun. We have to mend our clothes and things because, we can't go out and buy everything all the time. You don't want to like just throw something away just because you have a little bit of a hole in it. So I find myself often like mending this or that, because over time things wear down at different rates, and it's like forever you're like mending something or another. But I used to find this kind of like a tedious, like, oh God, now what? I just fixed my lower robe and now my socks need some doing, or this and that. But actually I found that when I'm sewing, like hand sewing, it's one of those repetitive tasks, don't require a lot of thinking, and if you actually want it to look somewhat like uniform, which mine doesn't, but I mean you could strive to make your stitches look a bit uniform or whatever. It takes focus, and it's a very simple kind of focus that naturally brings you into the present moment. And as so I thought, oh, this is magic. So some days if you feel like you need something to ground yourself, but maybe you don't feel like your mind is ready to actually sit in formal meditation, because then that requires a bit of more refined kind of mind. You can do something like that, so that's maybe why some people like doing cross stitch. My mom used to love doing cross stitching, and so maybe that's why, because it's a repetitive meditative task without being capital M meditation. And then I noticed, see, when you start wanting to notice something, you notice all sorts of things. So maybe you can also, see in your life what kinds of things bring your mind to the present moment. I found out another great one is cleaning the toilet or bathrooms, because I don't know about you, but I have all sorts of hygiene protocols where I want to, you're wearing the same gloves, right? So you're not going to be changing your gloves in the middle of this whole affair. So I start with things that are like cleanest, I don't know, like wiping the mirror or, the sink or something, and then work my way down to like the more grotty, like toilets and like, drains or whatever, So then I must remember where my gloves have been first. And I must maintain the integrity of my cleanliness hierarchy. And so this requires like quite a bit of focus, because if one false move and you're like, oh no, now I've like touched the toilet, now I can't go back to I don't know, the toothbrush holder or whatever it is, like there are things you must remember. And so I found after I do that, after I clean the bathroom, my mind is actually very clear, very focused. And so if people find cleaning the toilets an enviable task, let me tell you, there are hidden benefits. And there are many toilets to clean at the monastery, so if you ever want to come along, you are more than welcome. We have very fastidious protocols. You will see there is like a multi-page Word document about this, so I'm not kidding. And so that's a good one. And another thing was maybe something which I was struck by. I once attended a meditation retreat taught by a Sri Lankan monk named, I believe, Benpo Kamashila. I'm sorry if I forgot your name. But he said something I found very interesting. So a common question he was asked, like, oh, how do I make my mindfulness better, or, something like that. And he's like, I found that my mindfulness gets sharper when I'm traveling. And so I was like, oh, why is that? And then he said, oh, it's because, when you're in a new place, you really have to be alert to figure out where you're going, or you have to be able to be able to figure out signs that may not be in a language that or, it's like you're kind of on like red alert almost. Maybe that's a bit much, but you're kind of at a higher alert level, which naturally brings your mind to the present moment, because you can't afford to miss what's going on. And I found that a parallel thing that was sort of like that for me is when I injured myself, like when I sprained my ankle, or I recently strained my wrist over the vasa. And I found that, when you have an injury, you have to be really mindful about like how you're moving that part, and how you have to move other parts to compensate for it, or how you do your daily tasks. If you've heard your right hand, it's like, how do I do this with my left hand? How do I do all these things with my left hand? And then you have to like be really in the moment to figure out how you're going to do it in a way that doesn't hurt any other new part, because how many injuries can you have at once? It's like a bit much. So then you're trying to figure out how you're going to do it. And okay, you have to be careful not to get like fraught and be like over, then it becomes like laced with fear when you do that. But if you do it with just sort of more relaxed kind of presence in the moment, that can get you in tune with the present moment again. And so that's another good one. I'm just brainstorming here, because when you brainstorm, you realize actually there's many opportunities to be present easily in daily life. Another good one, which I noticed since I was a kid, without even knowing what mindfulness was or whatever, but I noticed whenever I was, you know, in a car. Of course, the adults were driving. I'm just sitting in the passenger seat. But whenever we got to like an intersection, and, you know, maybe my auntie turns on the turn signal, you know, where you're going to have to make a turn, but you're at the red light, and it goes like, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. There's like a little sound of that turn, you know, that indicator. And I always found that really soothing. I found that, yeah, and in Bangkok, in like the world's worst traffic, and, you know, kind of rankings, probably very high in the world rankings of worst traffic. Some of those intersections are like, you're stuck there for like a really long time. So that means it's a long time when I can listen to that tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And even to this day, I find it soothing. When we have to go to Bodhinyana, it's an hour, 20-minute drive. There are many points where we do have to stop at intersections. And yeah, every time that happens, it's like the turn signal, the tick-tock, tick-tock, it brings me back to just, it's very enjoyable for me. I find it very, very kind of, yeah, the word is soothing. I find it soothing. And I think that's because your mind is in the present moment. And so when you start noticing in your daily life, when you actually effortlessly are in the present moment, you can kind of get a feel for it. You know, you can kind of get a familiarity of just the taste of it. Just for the taste of it, the feel of it, Diet Coke. That's the slogan that popped into my mind, but it's exactly like that. You get a taste for it, a feel for it, present moment, you know, and then when you do, you start to recognize it. This is an Ajahn Brahm acronym, or, you know, little shortcut memory thing, which I find very useful. This framework of recognition, familiarity, and ease. Like when you can recognize the present moment and become familiar with what it feels like when you're in the present moment, and start to feel at ease in it. Because I think one of the reasons why we find it so hard to be in the present moment is because we actually feel a bit uncomfortable there. You know, why is that? It's because, ask yourself, why is that? Here's my theory. You can go and see whether or not this matches your theory. But my theory is that when you're in the present moment, your sense of self actually kind of disappears. You know, like, we have to keep remanufacturing our sense of self by creating thoughts about the past and the future, right? Because if we're just in the present moment, who are we? Like, our identity's gone, right? It's like we have to keep going, you know, mind wandering off to the past to remember who I was, what I did, you know, who that person was yesterday is still me, kind of thing, that to make that connection. Or we think about the future, planning for this so-called me and my life in the future, whether that's going to eat a steak for dinner or whatever it is, you know, it's still something that close is still me in the future. And when you're manufacturing plans about your future, you are creating yourself again, and you are enabling yourself to continue existing in your deluded world. And so that's why we don't like being in the present moment, because we actually have to let go of our identity of being who we are. And so that's why we're always wandering off. Past, future. But once you actually start to recognize the present moment and become familiar with it, it almost feels like, you know, if you ever had a sliding door in your house somewhere that kind of gets off track. Has that ever happened to you with a door? It kind of falls off track, and then you can try to make it close, and you can force it, but it feels like really like there's a lot of friction, and it feels really uncomfortable. But if you keep fidgeting with it until finally the door goes back onto the proper track, then when you move it and it glides so smoothly, you feel like, right, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the natural way it's supposed to be. And I feel that's very similar to what the mind feels like when it's not in the present moment. It just feels like there's some kind of friction and discomfort. But then if you can jigger it back, if you can recognize what it feels like when your mind is in the present moment, it's like, right, I'm back into the groove, and it's and it feels like it's sliding naturally. There's a flow, there isn't any friction, and it's very easeful. And then that's something which you'll start to recognize more and more. The more familiar you are with it, you're also familiar with the feeling of ease that happens when you're in the present moment. Because if you really notice, not just that sense of being in the present moment, but the feeling of it, if you want to use technical Buddhist language, Pali term, Vedana, the feeling being, you have three choices, either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And you'll notice actually when you're in the present moment, it is pleasant. And so, yeah, this is not my own quip. Some other person, I remember who exactly it was in my life who said this, but I was like, oh, that's very clever. They said, the present moment is the pleasant moment. And I thought, yeah, lady, that's a good slogan, because it's true. The present moment, if you really notice, is actually a pleasant moment. And sometimes we forget that when we do that frustrating thing of like, oh yeah, I gotta bring my mind back. Then you lose that sense of it being pleasant. You feel like, oh, like it's like this tedious chore, bring my back to the present moment. But the present moment itself is a very pleasant moment. And if you can compare that with other kinds of pleasant moments, because yeah, some kind of thinking is pleasant. It's true, like especially if you're fantasizing about something, like y'all might fantasize about some grand, I don't know, beach holiday you might be getting coming up, and fantasizing what you're going to do there, this, that, whatever. And maybe nuns will fantasize about, oh, the next retreat I'll be able to do, that kind of thing. That's kind of a pleasant fantasizing, and it actually does have a bit of a pleasant flavor, pleasant feeling to it. But if you could actually compare the two, you would feel that actually that pleasant from the fantasy style thinking is not as pleasant. It's like if you were at the beach and you were like frolicking in the waves in the part of the ocean that's shallow. That's quite fun. I mean, I used to like doing that. It's quite fun, and you're like, hopping here and there, and like, ooh, another wave comes crashing in. Ooh, how exciting. But it's not as nice actually as when you're, swimming deep underneath in a deeper part of the ocean, or even a deeper part of the swimming pool. When you dive underneath the water, it's a very like it envelops you with calm and peace when you're in the deep water. And actually, for me, I feel that pleasant is a higher ranking pleasant. It's a better kind of pleasant than just the hee hee ha 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 of like, being in the waves. So the deeper pleasant of being in the present moment, I think, is superior to the hee hee ha ha of like fantasy style thinking. And so I think if you really start to discern that for yourself and feel it, then that is the mind's carrot, your incentive to navigate back to the present moment, because it's just more easeful for you. You actually feel more well-being when you're in the present moment. So naturally, if you notice that aspect of the present moment, your mind naturally will be drawn and inclined to it, because the mind also works with incentives. We are pleasure-seeking people. So if you find that the pleasure of being in the present moment is a more refined pleasure, your mind will naturally be drawn to it. And by the same token, it will naturally notice that when you're not in the present moment, it's actually unpleasant. And you can do the same, the opposite of noticing what activities bring your mind to the present moment, what activities take your mind off it more easily. Things like surfing the internet, or talking, just even talking, even harmless talk, even talking with a friend over wholesome things. But especially if you talk about unwholesome things, that's even more likely to take your mind into a non-present momenty agitated state. Reading the news, like as a monastic, I don't read very much news, but when it does come up, when you do have to, you're going to the doctors or whatever, and they have it in the reception area, and it's like blaring, and you're like, oh God, can I please turn off? Like, if there's no one else, I like just quietly go and like turn down the volume, because it's very disturbing, like hearing about the latest horrible news that's happening wherever in the world. It's not to mean that you ignore that there is suffering in the world, but also it's that kind of constant feeding of unnecessary information can make your mind, kind of agitated. And even doing like tedious tasks, like unfortunately anything that becomes routinized becomes kind of tedious, or at least it's so routine it becomes automatic pilot that you tend not to be with it. You tend to just wander off because you think, I know how to do this already. And for me, eating lunch is very tedious because you have to, as a monastic, you can't eat dinner. So for me, I have to eat more at lunch to make myself last, and my metabolism means I have to eat a lot. And so it's like a very tedious chore. It's like, oh, when will it be enough? And so my mind, I have to say, is often not so in the moment. I tell myself, well, if I'm out to lunch, my mindfulness can also be out to lunch, and so it tends to be. And so I have to learn how to make my mind engaged, find it interesting. I know that the trick is to somehow make my mind interested in what I'm doing, even if it's a tedious everyday task I have to do. Somehow make it interested is the way to bring my mind back to the present. But also just knowing that, when I allow my mind to wander and it goes off into thinking, mostly actually thinking, I would say fantasizing is one of the few kind of thinking that is quite pleasant, but a lot of thinking is quite unpleasant, especially if it's like distracting, or even especially if it's like unwholesome or negative or angry or that kind of thing, that is really unpleasant. But even mild distraction is still, it's like makes your mind busy. It makes it like it's like there's like a cacophony going on in there. It's like being some crowded train station and there's all this like noise clattering around. That's what it feels like, and it's very unpleasant. So as you notice both the carrot and the stick, not in terms of the punishment, but the idea that you notice that it's unpleasant for you when your mind wanders off the present moment, then naturally your mind will not go back to the present moment out of a sense of, I should be in the present moment, but it becomes, I like to be in the present moment. This is actually something I prefer. Your mind will start to say, I prefer this. So it will keep coming back to it more easily. And that's something which, once you know what the groove feels like, and you're more like familiar with it because you're in that groove more often, more frequently in your day, then it's easier to notice when you've gotten out of the groove and to go back to it more easily without having to force it. But that naturally your mind's like, oh wait, no, let's get back in the groove. And then being in the present moment becomes something that is not forced, and it becomes something that happens with a sense of ease and enjoyment. And that's something which, it makes it a lot easier, really. And also it's something which you have to be patient about. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to get to a place where you feel, I'm really at ease and I'm really familiar with the present moment, and so that's where my mind will like to be. And so that's something which is something I guess we can draw our experiences from daily life to inform our formal meditation practice. But I would also note that doing certain activities that help your mind to come to the present moment before you start to do formal meditation is very helpful. So I think it was probably some kind of stroke of genius that whoever set up your your what do you call it, the order of what happens on an Armadale Tuesday is you start with the chanting, because people have come from work, or they've come, I don't know what your time zone is, but like in Perth it would be the end of the day, so people probably had a long day of doing other stuff, and probably maybe right even before coming to their meditation room or their computer, they might have been quite busy. And so it takes time to adjust your mind. I mean, I think there's like neuroscientists have probably, they've measured this somehow, and I forget exactly what it's called. What's the alpha wave and what's the beta wave? Which one is the relaxed one? But apparently your brain waves, they do change. There are different waves for different levels of relaxation and focus. And so when we come from busy, I'll call that the beta wave because that begins with a B, and we want to go to a smoother alpha wave. I'd be completely wrong. Could be the other way around. But anyway, point being that you can switch the wave using a bridge, and that bridge is an activity like chanting. Because chanting, naturally, right, you're like trying to follow the words. What is it? May I be happy? Who, what? You have to follow the words and you have to chant. Even though you're muted, the idea is to chant along with the chanting leader. And I have to try to chant along with me, I guess, along with what I feel is the rhythm that I normally chant. And so then it brings your mind to the present in a very simple way. You know, no equipment needed. Beyond your chanting book, you know, nothing fancy. Or if you want, you could do exercise before you meditate. Like I noticed the days when because I do it, I go walking up the hill at the monastery now. Just the days we have evening sit together, because I'm like, well, I might as well, because I'm coming down anyway. That increases the chances of me doing this exercise. If I have to come down anyway, then I'll do it. And I notice actually when I do it, my mind is already clearer. When I go to do our, you know, group sit, it's already in a better space. And so that's something which anyone can easily work into their day. Or even something like listening to the bell. I don't have do we have a bell here? Probably not one that you could really hear, but I find that can be also really good. I was once at a retreat in the Plum Village tradition long ago when I was a layperson. And I was really like my mind was all over the place at that retreat. And like the only thing I could do was listen to that bell. And I found that very calming, like just listening to the sound of the bell, because their bells, it's not just ding, it's like ding and it resounds for a long time. And there's this like bell echo that goes on for quite a little while. And like, I could follow that, you know? At least for that part of the retreat, I'm like, yes, I understand the present moments, you know? And then the rest of it is like, okay, not in the present moment, but those magical bells was like, yes. So if you're ever struggling with your meditation, go get yourself a recording. Like I'm sure the internet is full of them, of meditation gong or whatever, and then you can just play it on repeat. And you can do that for a whole half an hour or an hour or whatever, and that could be your meditation. So that's something which can do. And also bowing or prostrations. Now I know why in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition they have this thing about like full body prostrations. And because, yeah, you really got to focus to do that. and yeah, it's harder to perfunctory bow when you have to get all the way down on your flat on the floor. Yeah, you kind of have to put your whole heart into it. So that's something which can also be very useful. So we can't do that today on Zoom, but these are just some ideas that maybe you can play with in your own time. So yes, now it's probably time to actually do some meditation. Although, if you have been paying attention carefully, that will already have, you know, kind of tuned your mind into the present moment. And if I had been speaking mindfully, I too would have been somehow already tuning into the frequency of the present moment. So we are all a step ahead. But anyway, let us formally meditate. So if you'd like to just adjust yourself, however, wherever you are. I mean, some of you look like you're on the beach. So, yes, do as you need to get even more relaxed on the beach. And just grounding yourself, literally noticing where if you're sitting on a chair, as I am, where your feet touch the ground or wherever your feet are resting on. Really feel it. Or if you're sitting on a cushion, where does your bottom touch the cushion? And feel the weight of your body on that seat. like you are solidly here. Wherever you are really solidly here. Body is here. Your mind is here. Then notice how your head is sitting on your shoulders. Is it balanced? Is it straight? Notice your face. Is it tense? Is it relaxed? Can it be more relaxed? Notice how your spine is. Is it straight? Is it slouched? See if we can straighten it. And then now, is it too tense? So then relax it so it feels natural. Upright, alert, relaxed. Noticing your chest. So you can open it up. So you feel invigorated, but also open to whatever experience arises. Notice your abdomen as it rises and falls as you breathe. And then noticing your hands, if they're positioned in a comfortable way. And just noticing where they contact either the other hand or your lap or wherever you feel them. Again, just using that to ground yourself. Being right here, right now. So you feel you're really in touch with your body as it is right now. Notice how that feels in your mind. That feels pleasant. You might look at your internal world. Are there any emotions that are clearly expressing themselves? You can feel it physically. If there's any discomfort, because any uncomfortable feelings your emotional world will be mirrored by an uncomfortable feeling in your body. So, just feeling that. No need to force it to go away. Just letting it say what it needs to say to you. Let it fully express itself. Notice if you feel more relaxed after you've let it have its say. And notice any thoughts that might be fluttering around in your mind. And notice if those thoughts bring a pleasant feeling to you? Or is it only superficially pleasant? But not as pleasant as peace? And now, try to imagine an experience you've had today or in recent memory, doing some kind of activity in your normal life, where you felt you were really in the present moment, quite a lot of it. You can even bring up the image of that activity. Imagine yourself doing it, pretending you're doing it now. Call up the feeling of being in the present. By remembering it, you can in a way recreate it right now. Just really sink into that feeling. Savoring it. Feels so nice, doesn't it? You can just dwell in that for a little while. Whenever the feeling starts to fade, or random thoughts pop into your head, just try to call to mind again that experience you had recently of doing something where you felt being in the present moment came easily and naturally. Bring that up in mind again. Any of you who are familiar with breath meditation? As your mind quiets down, you feel the breath coming to the fore. also try being with the breath as your bridge to the present moment. Because the breath can only move as it moves in and out, exactly in real time. Just gliding in with the breath, gliding out with the breath. We're just gliding in the present moment, like a swan on a lake. coming close to the end of the meditation, you can take a bit of time to spread any good benefits that have arisen from this meditation to other beings. So you can begin by just noticing how your mind feels now compared to the beginning of the sitting. Do you feel more attuned to the present moment? Do you feel this momentum of being here in the now? So really bring that feeling in focus, like in bold font. And then share it outwards. You can imagine it rippling out like the sound waves from a gong, resonating outwards in circles that keep widening and widening all around you. Like in the Metta Sutta, above and below, around and everywhere. Let the peace of the present moment resound in the world around you, to the beings around you. Outwards and outwards. Really, there's no limit to all directions. May all beings share in this peace. May all beings learn the experience of being in the present moment and be able to dwell in that peace for as long as they can. And may that be longer and longer and longer. So long that you don't even notice it's long, because you're just in the present in each moment. But finally, you can just reflect back on this meditation, asking your mind, what helped it to find its way to the present moment? What helped it to keep being there, moment after moment? What caused it to slip away? Just asking, not judging. Just learning. And finally, we can ease ourselves out of formal meditation but still remaining in contact with the present. You can take a few breaths. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, here we are again. We're always here. Whether we know it or not, we are always just here. So, now we can open for questions if anyone has any. Okay, Minna and Marku in Finland. I can't hear you.
Okay, just unmuted now.
Okay.
Thank you very much for a really interesting discussion and a really delightful meditation.
Thank you.
Could you expand on your remark about remaking the self by wandering away from the present moment? Because up to now, I never made the connection about my mind going away into the future or into the past as a way of remaking myself or remaking me mind.
Mm-hmm.
And now during this meditation, I paid attention to that.
Mm.
And it was really awful to see how much I'm trying to remake the self by wandering off, and even by just staying in the present moment. I'm remaking the self all the time, talking to myself, hey, this is going really good, and then when I go into the past or the present, hey, I did this and I did that, and listen to this, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. And it was very hard to shut down.
Yes.
So, could you expand a bit on that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing about when we do formal meditation is it enables us to see that. So, actually, that's a sign that the meditation is working at some level, because sorry, it's Julie, it's running low. Can we plug into the
Sure.
sorry, my computer battery's running low, so I hope it doesn't cut out. But yes, the thing that I notice this very clearly is when I'm doing walking meditation, actually, because when you're in motion, you kind of feel more like it's normal life than sometimes when you're sitting, because that's a bit more of a artificial kind of setup where you're like, oh, I'm sitting completely still, which you don't usually do that in daily life. But when I'm walking meditation, and I notice there are times when my mind is actually, present and silent, and then I notice that when the internal chatter comes up again, it can only really think about my past or my future, you know? Like, when you think you're commenting on the present, you're not really, because if you were really in the present, it would be silent. you wouldn't have space to comment. So once you're commenting, it's already a little bit delayed. It's not in real time. And so the thing is, I inquired myself, like, well, why are you doing this? Because you were more peaceful when you were in the present moment. So why do you keep thinking about the past and the future? Why do you want to do this? And over time, really, I had to admit, well, it's because I don't want to disappear, you know? And my way of proving that I still exist is to frantically come up with some thought about what I just did, because that means I exist, because that was me that just did the thing, or what I plan to do in the future, because it's my life that is like connected, right? Like there's a sense of there's a seamless me between the past, the present, and the future, and so that same old me is going to do this kind of thing in the future. because that creates the illusion that there is a me, right? It's like, unless I have those thoughts about the me in the past and the me in the future, then I'm just the silent no me in the present. And so that is freaky, and even though it's peaceful, it is freaky. So out of like a sheer self-preservation instinct and habit, your sense of self must drag you out of the present moment as soon as possible, so it can continue to manufacture this illusion of a self. It must manufacture those familiar thoughts about your past and the future, because that is how you can only exist in those time zones. You can't really, your identity can't exist in the present. Try it. Just try it. Like, don't take my word for it. Just try notice. Yeah, when I'm silent, where's my identity? I mean, I could be some other random mute person, you know? It's like all of you, if I didn't see your faces and you were all muted, I wouldn't know you were here. I wouldn't, you know? And yeah, I can see the name. So like someone like Helen Gardner doesn't have her video on, so I can see, okay, there's somebody named Helen Gardner there, but who's she really? You know? Even the labeling of Helen Gardner required a thought. You had to punch that in. So even when our mind says something so subtle like, Helen Gardner, I'm Helen Gardner. If it's just a whisper of a thought, you're still making the you. You know? I'm Ajahn Munissara. Oh dear. I'm gone.
Oh yeah, it is.
How come?
I don't know why it does not work.
Oh, am I still here? I'm still here. Okay, see? Just to prove a point, that was very eerie timing. As soon as I said, I'm here, the screen blanked.
Okay, it might, I don't know why it does not.
Yeah, I don't know. That was some kind of supernatural dharmic thing where it wants to prove that no, you do not exist. No. Please end your delusion. Actually, the computer was telling me, no, there is nothing there. You don't really exist. This is all an illusion. These Zoom images and our names that we label our Zoom images as. This is all just a trick of the mind.
Maybe it will soon go out because it does not work.
Is the video not working?
No, the computer has no power soon.
Okay, but don't worry. I have a kind tech assistant who she's going to figure out. Maybe the PowerPoint isn't turned on.
Yeah, I changed it so it goes directly into the socket, but it does not work.
Really?
I don't know.
Maybe you're not plugged in properly.
It is.
Plugged
in there and here and every.
It looks like it's charging.
It is
charging. Yeah. Okay, very good.
Good. Okay.
Nothing like technical difficulty to bring you back into the present moment, because you're like, you have to troubleshoot only in the present moment. So yes, okay. So that's kind of what I would say about that. Does that help clarify things, Marku or Minna? I'm not sure which one you are.
Yes.
Yes.
It helps a lot because what you said about being silent and how freaky it is. There were a few moments of silence, and it really felt really freaky. And the worst thing is that right after feeling freaky, Homer Simpson and Bart Simpson came out in their voices and said, "Oh, ring."
Yeah.
That was really weird.
See,
Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Bob and Homer. Yeah. Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson, they come up in my mind too. Because they are, again, they're part of your past, you know? They're part of all these things that I remember, all these Diet Coke jingles, all these Homer Simpson quotes, all these song lyrics, they're all part of my past experiences. And so even when the mind calls up something that isn't directly about me per se, it's something that comes from my past, and it's like kind of like an umbilical cord to my identity. And so then this is why the mind does this, because your sense of self is hard at work to keep you under its spell. The illusion must be maintained, and it must be like I said, manufactured and remanufactured again and again to keep it going. So that's why that's why our minds wander. But delusion runs deep, so we really have to find our tricks of the trade to come back to the present moment and feel that freedom of not being yourself for a little while. And that's the beauty of the present moment, actually. So I see Alexis has a question. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, please. First of all, thank you so much, Ajahn Munissara, for the meditation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My question is like, when you feel distracted by when I interrogated what was distracting me, one of the things was like the physical sensation, because I really struggle with and feeling overheated, and I was feeling hot because I'm in part of the house that doesn't have air conditioning because it's a private part of the house anyway. And my mind was having it back in me, telling me, no, this is this is the present moment. The present moment has, you're overheating in this present moment. And the sort of way that I debated back in order to be able to continue was to say to it, well, that's part of my present moment experience, and I'm just going to accept it. But now, thinking about what you've just said, I realised that the feeling hot was maybe a delayed thing, and it was I had just felt hot, and it was again my mind telling me a story about the continual existence of a person who was hot at a point in time and wanted to get up and put a fan on. It was still back to my mind trapping me into that idea of like, I am hot, I am uncomfortable, I need to move, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the sense of self permeates, our life. And so, but that's very insightful of you to notice that even our desire for physical comfort is coming out of a self-preservation instinct. And so I've noticed similarly, whether it's heat or cold or hunger or thirst, any physical discomfort, and our mind tends to become more restless. Like we're so hardwired to try to solve our physical problems. It's like part of our survival instinct. And it's like true, like people can die from overheating and they can die from being overly cold. So our sort of nervous system and our animal part of our brain, it wants to find comfort and it wants to deal with it. And to notice this and to work with this in a way that doesn't keep feeding your sense of self, or at least allows you to be free from that compulsion to make things comfortable for me, is to just actually learn how to, rather than tell yourself that, okay, accept that it's hot in the present moment. That's exactly true. The whole concept is correct, that yes, the present moment experience is feeling hot and uncomfortable. And when the mind accepts that, then there is peace. But we can't force our mind to accept it. We can only learn to just experience it, well, rather than say, oh, I must let go and I must not, I must accept that it's hot. Just ask yourself, what does it feel like to feel hot? Where is it hottest in my body? And if I stay with that part of the body, is the heat constant? Does it ramp up? Does it cool down a little bit even inside, indoors? Is there any change? And just actually having a mind of inquiry towards the experience naturally brings you to be with it more fully in the present, in a wordless way. It's not like you actually have to fill out the blanks. Like the question is, where do I feel it? Oh, I feel it in my chest. You don't actually have to verbalize it in such thinky ways, but just sort of, just feel it. It's quick, right? You can just be like, oh, I feel it in my face. It's flushed. I can feel the heat, or whatever. It's just very quick. You can just ask these sort of questions in the background, and then as a skillful means to bring you in touch with the actual experience of the heat, and to notice how it is actually always changing, and how when we are actually, rather than fighting the experience, we're actually with the experience, it becomes less uncomfortable. Notice if that happens. Like, try see if that actually happens. And if it really is going to kill you, then believe me, your body will send out danger signals that would have made you like go put out the fire already. So if it's not to that level, then it is probably bearable. And so see if you can bear it with greater grace simply by just trying to honestly be with the experience for what it is, out of a sense of curiosity, out of a sense of like almost like you want to get to know a new person you've never met before, and you're just kind of getting acquainted. So that just, it's kind of like sometimes for me it's helpful to think of like, how do I relate to something that is not about meditation? Just getting that relational aspect in place, and then applying it to whatever your experience is, can be helpful. So if you want to think of some unpleasant person or whatever, and it's sort of like the unpleasant temperature, and see how you can relate with them and be with them in a way that is not turning them away. So that would be my response for that one. Does that help?
Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Okay, everyone is so peaceful, very few questions. I take this as a good thing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, thank you for your guided meditation, and I really resonated with what you said about like cultivating the present moment, because I used to listen to music while I walk, and then I cannot do that anymore. And then today after work, I used to take out my smartphone and start scrolling like the website and stuff like that, and I cannot do that as well because I just feel really uncomfortable. I used to spend quite a lot of time on smartphone, and then I want myself to stop, and I cannot stop. And then I think it's now I can't do that anymore. It's like my mind notices how unpleasant this is, and I still use it sometimes, but I just cannot use it for a very long time anymore. And yes, I think it's really getting the taste of the present moment. And I have a question about meditation. Is sometimes when I do meditation, I will feel the energy comes up, and then no matter it is metta meditation or breathing meditation, I will feel the energy start to arise, but I will feel there is a sense of resistance, it's not very obvious, but I realize I have that kind of resistance towards it. It's kind of like I'm conscious, and I just wondering I just cannot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this makes sense or not. I cannot let myself to penetrate the meditation as much as it can. Does that make sense? And I just wonder if there's any advice you can give for that.
First, I just want to clarify, what do you mean by energy? I'm not sure I really understand.
I think it's like the feeling of happiness, maybe, or like the I feel like I don't know how to put it, but it's it's like going from the feeling is like maybe like this, and then I start to feel like there's certain sense of calm, maybe peacefulness, or or happiness. I don't know. I'm not sure how to
Okay,
put
okay.
That,
It's really hard to put.
I think it's maybe with metta meditation. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, it's hard to put our mental experience into words, but I kind of get what you're saying. And I think that it's very astute of you to notice the resistance, even though it's subtle. I guess you can explore yourself and just put a question in your mind, like, why do I resist this? You know, like, not that it's wrong to resist, but there's a reason for it. Something is making you pull back from that. And I don't want to impose my theories on your situation. But just in general, I think with any experience in meditation that is different from what we've habituated, you know, what we're normally used to, anything new can be cause for, a bit of hesitation, even if it's nice, you know, even if it feels pleasant. If something is new, there's a bit of threatening nature to it. And so maybe sometimes our mind can feel a bit like hesitant and doesn't really want to go all the way there. It's just like anything else in your life, right? Like, was it hard for you to go to the school the first, like when you were in nursery school or kindergarten, the first day you had to go to school and mommy had to leave you there and then mommy had to go home and you had to see her go, and then it's like the friends look interesting, the school looks interesting, and you might feel a bit of joy in coming to a new place, but then there's a little bit of resistance, like, but I don't know these people and I don't know this place, and, and then so it, like, kind of like, you take a few steps back. And so maybe the mind does that with meditation experiences too. Is that any new, and that's why with every step of the way, there is this process of recognizing, becoming familiar, and becoming at ease with it. Because when you start to recognize that, oh yes, this is the energy that comes up when I meditate. It's this thing again. It feels like I've had it a few times. I start to recognize it, and then you start to like. The more you recognize it and the more familiar you are with it, it starts to feel like this or like that. And you're like, oh, okay, like I've gotten to know it. Then you feel more at ease with it. It just takes a bit of time of getting to know it. And then naturally the resistance will start to melt. So even if you ask the question, why am I resisting this? Your mind's like, I don't know. And it doesn't give you a clear answer. Then just the sheer process of recognizing it, becoming more familiar with it, you will naturally become more at ease with it, and then the resistance will fade, and then you'll be able to plunge into it with more abandon. And then, then the meditation will deepen on its own. But it's really helpful not to have a lot of ideals about how meditation is supposed to go, because that just like ensnares you in like unnecessary traps. There's enough traps. So then just kind of like allow whatever you're experiencing. If you feel resistance, fine. That's fine. Everything that happens is natural. Everything is happening due to some causes and conditions that is totally a natural experience. So if you have resistance, don't resist your resistance. Just see what happens to it, and it will change over time. So take a longer view of it, and just keep noticing it. But that's great that you have. It seems like you're really observing very keenly, and I think that's how we can learn in anything, including meditation, is when we're able to learn from our real direct experience, to be honest about it. Like it might feel like, oh, I'm not doing it right if I feel resistance, but no, like being honest, well, I feel resistance. And then exploring it, or just seeing what happens to it over time and all of that, it will naturally, you will be learning from your experience. So it will solve itself. I think anything in meditation, ultimately, it solves itself if you give enough time to it, and you develop enough confidence and trust in your own mind, then hopefully that will solve itself. Yes. So.
I think you're right. It's the kanti. It's the kanti thing that the Buddha always speaks about.
I know, right? It's so it's such an unglamorous kind of virtue, patience. But actually, patience is it's a ticket, really. I think patience is the answer to everything. It's just we don't like that answer because it takes patience. so then, but That's great. That's great that you made that connection. Kanti Paramang, the Bodhitika, the greatest incinerator of our defilements. Yes. Okay, well, we've only got a couple minutes left, so that's probably not enough time for any real questions. But I think the question for all of us is, how do we just keep learning from our meditation? And how do we learn to answer our own questions? Because really, it'd be so nice to have like a pocket guru you could take everywhere and just be like, excuse me, why is this happening? Why is that happening? But then that's usually not available, and the really good teachers are often very busy. And so through sheer dint of necessity, we develop the ability to be our own teacher, because ultimately you will have to be, because you are with your mind all the time, and no one else really can know everything about your experience all the time. Even you, when you don't have mindfulness, don't know about your experience. So I mean, really. But in terms of, it took me, like, I really, in a way, think, in a way where we are at an advantage being nuns, because we have less access, actually, to senior monk teachers and stuffs, because they are monks and they live in their monks' monasteries, and we shouldn't be gallivanting around monks all the time being nuns. And so then out of sheer I might go on Ajahn retreat like once every 2 years, and then you can have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 interviews of 10 minutes, and so if I had to wait to get all my questions answered in those 10 minutes, I mean, good luck. So then I really learned that I had to learn by myself. And I mean, of course, he's available if you really have questions, you really need it. He's still available. You can make an appointment or something, but it's just complicated and difficult. And so if you learn to be your own teacher by just being with your experience, that's another benefit of being in the present moment, is that you will actually be in the classroom of the present moment to learn from it and to learn from your experience. Otherwise, you're like playing hooky from school. Every time you're not in the present moment, you're not showing up in the classroom. So it's going to be very hard to develop your ability to learn or to teach yourself. But every time the more you're in the present moment, the more you're in the classroom, the more you can learn, and the more you will be able to answer your own questions, because sheer experience will teach you. Doing it again and again, and getting to that point again and again, and whatever, again and again is the ticket. So then we can all just become our own teachers if we just keep at it again and again. So on that note, we can probably wrap up before I repeat that again and again. So anyway, thank you everybody for coming. It's been lovely to meditate with you again, and nice to see people from all over the world. It makes me feel really at home.